What are you doing?
I'm getting ready for the podcast.
Are you going to eat chips the entire time?
It's just a little snack. What's wrong with that?
Well, I don't think people are going to want to hear you eat chips while we record.
I think it's fine. It's an authentic feel.
I mean, I guess. You did cough during this podcast. That was pretty authentic.
Yeah, just more immersive. I think it's fine. Here, do you want some?
Why don't you eat? All right, you know what? I'll try one. What if we ate something quieter, like marshmallows?
No, that gums up your mouth too much.
Captain Crunch?
I don't want to get my mouth torn up.
Hello, and welcome to the Mike at the Helm podcast. I'm your host, Mike Spencer.
And I'm your host, Arza Helm.
Arza, how you doing today?
You know, I'm actually a little bummed.
Yeah? Why is that?
So, the ugly stepsister from Shrek
Yeah, what about her?
passed away.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, who was the ugly stepsister in Shrek?
It was Larry King.
Oh, yeah, I know about Larry King. He was
Yeah.
the ugly stepsister in Shrek.
Yeah, in 2, 3, and 4.
It's kind of a tongue twister, right?
Yeah.
Can you say it so I feel less bad that I stumbled?
The ugly stepsister?
Ugly stepsister from Shrek.
Yeah. Oh, ugly stepsister from Shrek.
All right, fine. I guess it's just me. I'm a little tired today, so
Maybe if I said it like 5 times fast.
yeah. I think I said it 2 times, so, you know.
Yeah, that's more than I said it. So I only said it once. But yeah, I looked it up because I actually didn't know who Larry King was. I'd heard the name, and I think he's kind of like almost like an Alex Trebek, where he's kind of like a little sweetheart of television, you know?
Yeah, he's like
People
a TV
just-
show host. or
Yeah,
he
and
was
people just
back in
really
the day.
like him.
Yeah.
But I looked it up, and he was in Shrek 2, 3, and 4, and he played the ugly stepsister.
Oh, look at that.
He was in a lot of stuff that I didn't know he was in.
Just not Shrek 1. Wasn't
Yeah.
cool enough at the time.
No. Or Shrek 1 wasn't cool enough for him.
I could see that. And then he was like, you know what? This is a pretty decent movie.
Yeah.
I will play as the ugly stepsister.
I would be honored.
Okay.
But yeah, so he passed away. And people have been amazed that I didn't know who he was.
It's funny. I remember when Kobe Bryant passed away back in like February 2020.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it on my phone. It popped up. Like I was like, oh my god! And then I was at work at the time, and so I drove back to my work, and I was like, hey, did you guys hear that Kobe Bryant died? And then like 3 of my coworkers were like, who's Kobe Bryant?
What the hell?
Yeah, and it's like, you don't know who Kobe Bryant is?
Who doesn't
Like,
know who that is?
that's like one of the most popular basketball players of like all time. It's
Yeah.
like Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron James.
Yeah, he's one of the best scorers. Like, is he already in the Hall of Fame? Do you know?
I feel like it. Yeah,
If he's not already, then he's going to be.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a death, you know, like, it was very tragic the way he died.
Right.
Like, no one should ever die that way.
And his daughter too.
Yeah. But I guess, like, I didn't fully realize the impact that he had on society, particularly, like, low income. Like, I guess he was an inspiration for a lot of, like, low income areas.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that a big thing with like basketball players in general?
I think so, yeah.
Where they like make it big?
Yeah, and a lot of basketball players are just stellar guys. Like, during the COVID shutdown, when basketball games stopped being, like, hosted and all the jobs that were at stadiums, like ticket workers and concessions, stuff like that, a lot of basketball players stepped up and they're like, oh, I'll pay these people's wages.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
I'd
that's
pay them
really
how
cool.
much they'd be paid, how much they'd be losing.
Right.
And they just do a lot of cool community stuff too.
Right.
Like, it's really a group of good people in the NBA for the most part.
So do you think it's pretty common for someone in the NBA to like grow up poor? Like, is that a thing?
From what I understand, it's pretty common.
Really?
Yeah, because, you know, stuff like maybe football, you can make it big if you're poor, but there's a lot of expenses of like pads and cleats and stuff like that. Whereas basketball, it's like you really just need a ball and a hoop.
I
you
could
know?
see that. Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of like
No knee
startup costs
pads.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you see like lacrosse, and it's basically you have to come from a wealthy family to get the supplies for it.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay. Ping pong, you know, my paddle was like $100. So.
No, ping pong is actually, it can get expensive.
Yeah.
When I was in Taiwan, it was not uncommon for there to be $100 paddles.
Yeah, was it pretty common in Taiwan?
Oh yeah,
Really?
Everyone played it. Yeah, I remember every Thursday we would host like a little local tournament.
Oh, that's cool. So your ping pong skills were pretty on point in Taiwan.
Not by their standards.
No. But like when you came back, like did you school like your friend? No.
No,
You've always been bad at
bad.
ping
Yeah.
pong. Okay.
Yeah. But they, yeah, I would play even against little kids. Like I remember playing against an 8-year-old, and he was wrecking me. He was like, his head was barely above the table,
Right.
and I couldn't beat him.
Kid's a savage.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a benefit, maybe like where you're like aligned with the table, and you could,
It's eye level.
right.
It's actually, he was actually the regional like champion of Taiwan for his age group, and so that made me feel a
little
lot
better.
better. Yeah.
Still 8 though. I mean,
Hey,
I mean, I
with
could
youth
probably,
comes power.
I feel like I could, for the age group, I could beat like the best 4-year-old in the world at ping pong.
Are you sure?
I mean, I hope so.
I would actually question
4?
that.
Come on.
Dude, have you seen in China they have like training camps for any sport starting at like a year old?
Really?
I swear.
A
Maybe
year?
not a year, but
They're like choking on the ping pong balls. That's how they're lowering their population.
but
there,
really
too.
no, they start them young with different sports. They just
Okay.
have academies for everything, dude.
Okay.
It's just so hyper competitive there. You have to start young if you want to be successful.
So did they do? I know rules with casual ping pong are a lot different than like tournament rules. So do they go by tournament rules?
Yeah, there was, I can't remember the specifics. It's been years, but there would always be stupid little rules where I would have no idea that I was breaking a rule. Like, I can't even remember, but
Because I know
they were really strict.
I used to do ping pong at my old work job. They had a ping pong table in the basement, and they played by this like the most serious rules, like actual tournament rules. So I guess with ping pong, like you can't hold it and like hit it, or you can't even throw it up and hit it.
Yeah.
Like
You have to
and hold
balance it or something.
No, so you actually have to lay your hand flat like this, or where your where your hands like
Horizontal, like parallel to the ground.
yeah, like completely flat, and then you want to balance the ball right here, so you can't spin it at all, and then you want to throw it up in the air. And
Oh.
so you can't put on the extra spin because a lot of
Yeah.
people in the United States when they're playing casual, like they'll throw it up like this and do an extra spin. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay, that
spinnier.
makes sense.
And I know the ping pong tables are a lot shorter in tournament regulation than like regular, like standard ping pong tables that they can sell in the United States.
I would believe that, yeah. And it was funny, the place where we would host it, there was like a doorman. We'd host it in a church building. I was there for religious purposes.
So was it a Mormon church?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Were those pretty common? Like what was the layout for like Mormon churches in Taiwan?
usually they were, at least the ones I was in, they tended to be in like business buildings. It'd be like they'd rent out a couple
small space.
floors and then they'd renovate it
Oh, interesting.
and turn it into like a church building.
Okay.
It was actually pretty cool.
Were they like pretty frequent? Like could you like in a city or
I mean, Taiwan is so small.
Yeah.
It's like half the size of Utah or something like that. So I don't know. There's probably there's one in every major city at least,
Okay.
and then even some of the smaller towns.
Okay.
It's fairly common. But yeah, we would be in this big high-rise building. There's a doorman at the bottom floor to like, I don't know, keep people out that had weapons or whatever. And he was a weird guy. We have tons of funny stories about him.
was he Underground Frank?
No, different than
Di-
Underground Frank.
Different Frank.
Yeah, he would call himself Dr. Zhuang because whenever we were sick, he would just have a bag of pills, just different colored pills, and he would try and give them to us.
Did you ever take him?
No,
No.
no, he was like funny because he just didn't give a crap like what people thought of him,
Right.
and he would just mess with people.
Those are the best people.
Not to take pills from,
Yeah, maybe don't take pills from him.
but he came up when we were having one of these tournaments, and he was really old, probably at least 60, 65, and he was amazing at ping pong. He would beat everyone, and he would play with such intensity. He would like, the intensity of when someone spikes a volleyball.
Yeah.
That's how he would play every time he hit the ping pong.
Like his
ball.
return was just so aggressive every time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was funny.
He's had, if he started at 1, that's 64 years of training. So
That's true. Yeah. The
quite a lot of years.
academy training paid off.
I have maybe 5, and I definitely didn't train even every year. So.
Yeah, I have like maybe 1 year where I consistently played, and that was when I was in Taiwan.
Okay.
But Yeah. One thing I've been thinking about recently is books. Have you read any good books recently?
The Freakonomics books.
Oh, yeah.
There's one they put out in like 2013, so it was a couple years after they put out the Freakonomics books, but it's called Think Like a Freak.
Okay.
And I really like that one because they'll talk about like fun statistics and like how like you can just approach things with different levels of thinking. So I don't know if you knew this, but in soccer, when they do a field goal kick, you're actually like, I think 20 to 30% more likely to succeed if you shoot for the middle instead of either side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the thing is you look like way more of an idiot if you shoot for the middle because the goalie's right there, and it gets blocked because the goalie's right there.
Yeah.
So a lot of soccer players, to save face, they'll shoot for the sides, even though it's less likely. And that's the whole reason it's less likely is because nobody's shooting for the middle.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's funny because even in basketball with free throws, it's way more likely, I can't remember the percentage, but you're way more likely to make it if you do a granny shot, like the from under your waist and throw it up. Yeah. But people don't do it like that because they look like an idiot.
That's funny.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's way more likely to make a free throw that way. But literally no one does it.
From anywhere? Like,
a free throws from the free throw line.
oh, is it from the, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like if I was in the NBA, would I do free granny shots? I feel like I would.
Right. Yeah, you probably couldn't get away with granny shots in like a normal setting where people are like slapping the ball out of your hand. Or like blocking it.
Yeah, it's too
like
slow.
That. Too slow.
Yeah.
So. I know they're like, I know I've seen like interviews with basketball players and they'll say like they'll know whether or not a shot's going to go in like right after they throw it.
Yeah. There's, I remember seeing a game with Steph Curry and he shoots a 3 and like right after it leaves his hand, he just like starts air humping because he just like knows it's going in and he swished it. It was pretty cool. But then there's I can't remember what player it was that was on the Lakers like 3 years ago. He shot a 3 and he thought it was going in. He turns around and holds like 3 up on his fingers. And it airballs.
No, airball?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing off his game that day.
Yeah. So sometimes they're a little off, I guess. If you're Steph Curry, you're probably pretty certain. But yeah, there's I've been thinking recently about how, there's books that I get information from, but a lot of them I don't read. It's my fiance reading them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
the best of both worlds.
Tells me all about them, so I know like the storyline and everything.
Right. Yeah, you get all the core information, and you don't need any of the extra stuff.
No, exactly.
It's like a movie.
You know Ty Lopez?
I don't.
The here in my garage guy. Knowledge.
Oh,
that
yeah.
guy.
That guy is such a huge man.
But he, one of his big things is like read a book every day. But he doesn't actually read the book. He just reads like summaries of them.
Yeah, online.
But I could see that people like make fun of that, but I could see that actually being pretty useful.
Yeah, you do get more information from a book than, reading a synopsis online.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
but
yeah, if you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, some knowledge is better than none.
But yeah, that's what people were annoyed about. He's like, I read 30 books a day or something. Like he said something crazy, and they're like, no way. And he's like, well, I read a paragraph about him online.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
The thing that he says is like, why read the book yourself when someone else can read it for you or something like that?
Right, because if you even go back to my book, Think Like a Freak, if there was a synopsis of it online, it would be like, think differently. Yeah. Literally what? Is that Apple? Think
Wait,
different? What? Isn't that their slogan?
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
My roommate's an Apple employee. Maybe he could tell us. Oh, yeah. Let me call him.
But yeah, like I feel like you definitely aren't getting the same kind of. You're getting like the gist.
Yeah.
With looking up synopsises online, but
yeah,
it's not the same as reading the whole book.
Definitely. But I mean, like Spark Notes. Like people write essays off of Spark Notes, and I'm sure sometimes a teacher can tell, but
right.
Spark Notes. If you find a pretty in-depth summary, then it's probably decent. Decent amount of knowledge.
Well, especially since you're reading that and then you're putting it into your own words on a different piece of paper.
Yeah. But there's this book that she's been reading recently called A Utopia for Realists, I think it's called. And I actually really want to read it someday, whenever that day comes around. But essentially, it's this guy presenting all these arguments for, like, statistical arguments for progressive policies.
Like socialism, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like universal basic income and stuff like that.
Okay.
And one of the things that he talks about is productivity and reduced work hours in the week. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the studies on it, but there have been studies around for a long time on 4-day work weeks and companies that have done it and seen increased productivity with reduced hours.
It definitely depends on the work, right? If you're doing typical office work, then for sure, right? Like 4 8 hours. But then the other thing is like, retail, food, things like that, where you pretty much have to be there the whole time. But yeah, I have read studies on like the average employee in an office setting wastes like 25% of their time in like going to a pointless meeting or just scrolling through Facebook. Yeah. Because they don't have that much on their plate to do.
Yeah. Or I imagine they like, like you do need rest when you're stressing your brain out for hours on end.
I remember there were companies that actually tried doing that in the 70s. They did a 4-day work week of just 4 or 8 hours. And kind of backfired on them because a lot of the employees were like, oh, that means I get to work 4 days and then I get to make more money working an extra day. And they're like, no, that's not what we're going for
here. That's funny. Like they thought they would get overtime.
Yeah, basically.
If they worked another day or something.
Yeah, so they just thought like they'd get extra money and it's like, that's not what we were going for.
That's funny.
I wonder if that's what happened when like Saturdays started becoming off, Things like that.
Well, like, I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but this was a book that I actually read. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, I love Malcolm Gladwell.
He's really good. Like, I don't know if you'd consider what he does journalism. Mm-hmm. Is he a journalist, actually? That might be his trade.
His books are like psychology for the most part, right? Like,
yeah. But he's very in-depth, and I really like his works.
For sure.
But he talks about the evolution of work, and he talks about peasants back in like the 1300s, and he kind of talks about early humans until now. And there's never been a time in history where humans have worked as many hours in a year as now.
Really?
Because before, the sun goes down and you're done. Like you might have a torch, but torches were expensive. Those were like for the rich and stuff like that.
Right.
And so now with electricity and lights, we can work more now than ever before. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I always thought it was the opposite.
Right. And there's so many of these people that like will take pride in working like 80 hours a week. They're like, well, tell me how hard it is at your 40-hour week job when I'm working 80 hours. Like, that's not something to be prideful of. Like, dude, you're working yourself to the grave.
To me, that honestly, I think that's like propaganda within our culture to like keep people working a ton.
I could see that.
And that might be a little bit conspiracy theory type of thing. But yeah, I hate that mindset and how that's prided. Like recently someone was talking about Kanye West and like, oh, he's crazy. He like works so much and he like worked until like he had like a mental breakdown and stuff like that. I'm like, should we pride people in working until like they want to die?
Yeah,
like,
probably not.
I don't think that's a good thing to pride people in. Yeah, it's crazy. But this productivity thing with the 4-day work week. So there's like, I guess there's like a branch of psychology or consulting where it's productivity experts. And they go into businesses and they help them be more productive or whatever. And when Apple was first starting, their programmers had shirts that said, working 90 hours and loving it. Like 90 hours a week and loving it.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And I guess these productivity experts, they estimated that if they worked 45 hours a week, we would have had the Macintosh a year earlier.
Really?
Just because of the increased productivity from, having more time off, having more rest.
Yeah, I mean, even with the full-time jobs I've taken, I mean, there's a toll, I can't imagine what it's like working 90 hours. And that's got to be all your time, because even 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's 84 hours. So there's an extra 6 on top of that somewhere.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And I don't know how, like maybe there was a high rate of suicide, but I feel like that would lead to a lot of like dark thoughts. Like,
for sure. And, it depends. Like, I bet you Steve Jobs and like those kinds of people were probably working like that, but that was their whole life. That was their passion.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, especially factory workers, it's like they're not wanting to be there 90 hours a week. They're not wanting to think about it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's a thankless job too.
Yeah. Like, you're talking factory workers?
Yeah. Like assembling parts and things like that. Not Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even recently I was reading about Steve Jobs. Well, not that it was mindless work, but I guess Steve Jobs was basically purely a marketing guy. And the co-founder, I can't remember his name, Wozniak was more of a inventor and ideas type of guy.
He was like the IT guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought that was pretty interesting because I didn't even know the guy's name before I read it a couple days ago. And I forgot
really?
it. Yeah.
I knew about Wozniak. I know Jobs was definitely the face and the people person. I think he was still involved in the tech quite a bit, but I think Wozniak definitely had the majority of like the ideas and things like that.
So my dad, he used to be a big salesman in Xerox. You know Xerox?
I don't actually.
So Xerox, I think they came out with the first like personal computer or something like that.
Okay, so this was what, like the 70s? Is that when that started, or was it the 80s?
I don't know. It was back before I was born, for sure.
Definitely before you were born.
But my dad would, and they came out with like printers, and I think they were the first company to come out with the mouse. I might have to double check that. That might be wrong. But they invented a lot of stuff. And my dad was a big salesman for them. And he always talks about how he's like the top salesman in the US for them. But he hates Steve Jobs because I guess Steve Jobs went through like a Xerox factory or something and just like stole all their ideas.
Yeah.
And so he would come up with it.
I heard that as a story. I was going to mention that. So I don't know how true this is, but I've heard people like in when I worked at my IT jobs talk about this, where I guess the guy who invented the computer mouse was wanting to show it off to Jobs and Gates.
Yeah.
And so we showed off like this beta version of the mouse, and they were both like, yeah, that's a really good idea. And they put it into production like a month later.
That's crazy.
And before he even had any time to release anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what capitalism is. Like, don't show your ideas if you don't have a serious patent or anything like that on there.
Yeah. I mean, Albert Einstein says, what does he say? Like, creativity is knowing how to hide your sources. Like, basically just no one's actually creative and everyone just like is inspired by each other, steals ideas from each other and stuff like that.
Right. That was kind of a thing with Tesla and Edison, right? Like, I know Edison like stole a lot of ideas from Tesla, but he never really cared because he was just more about the fascination of inventing things.
Yeah,
and as
rather
long as
than
he had
monetizing
funding,
stuff.
Yeah, I think he specifically didn't patent any of his stuff. He was like, anybody can use it. Like, if you can make a better thing, that's great. Like, I think that's actually stuff he said.
That's awesome. I like, so I used to be a TA for this class where professors would come and just give lectures on their research. And there was this lady that was researching MS treatment, like the brain disease.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how this idea of needing to monetize everything hurts research a lot, or at least from her point of view, because everyone has to be so possessive about the stuff that they learn, and you can't really share it very well, because then if someone takes your ideas and builds off of it, then they get like research grants and you don't.
Especially with things like, big pharma, like any sort of medicine.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to share that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you could really help build each other up.
Yeah. And it's I don't know what an alternative would be, because then there's the argument where like, oh, if there isn't capitalism in this way of funding it, then no one would actually want to research these things. Well,
I mean, you got to think of Sweden, Switzerland, Canada, UK. I can't imagine they don't have any researchers there.
Yeah, I know. Like,
and their medicine socialized. So.
Where did the Pfizer vaccine, is that what's called? The Pfizer vaccine?
Yeah, I know that wasn't United States.
Yeah, where did that come from?
I don't know. I knew it wasn't U.S. though.
It was somewhere
U.S.
socialized medicine, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of people I know that specifically go to Canada to get medicine and come back because it's way cheaper there.
I believe it. Like, what's that? Oh my gosh, the diabetic medicine.
Insulin?
Yeah, isn't that like thousands of % more expensive in the U.S. than in Canada?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's true. Yeah,
it's I can't remember the statistic, but it's like way more expensive in the U.S.
Yeah, and it's funny, people don't realize this, but the generic brand of medicine is usually the exact same thing.
Yeah,
like there's not even a different sort of chemical compound.
Yeah,
when you're taking the same stuff. So, like with things like the name brand of Advil versus just regular ibuprofen.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
but people are like, no, I like Advil. It has the letter A or whatever.
Yeah, on its
name brand.
It's funny how how much that has an effect on us. Like, and also generic brands, why can't they just get a little bit better labeling? You know,
I could see that.
like I think seeing like
the-
a crappy ibuprofen label versus like the colorful Advil label, you know?
Yeah. I definitely like I'll go to Walmart and I will specifically not get the Great Value mustard and ketchup.
Yeah.
Because they look kind of gross. And I
Yeah.
don't know why. And I'm sure it's the same. But and it's like $2 cheaper. But
Yeah.
I'll never get it because it's like, ooh, Great Value. Like you just get that feeling. I don't know if anybody else
Like,
feels that.
can't you just spend like $20 on Fiverr and get a good design?
Seriously.
Like, I don't get it, dude. Like, it seems like, I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. But even, you know, what's actually crazy with grocery stores is how intentional the layout is.
Oh, yeah. Like how the milk's all the way in the back.
Yeah.
And things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, or like, you know, items that might be more appealing to kids will be lowered to the ground.
Oh, yeah. I never thought about
And
that.
adult items.
Condom section? Is that what you're talking about, Marissa?
But like food products that might appeal more to adults are higher, and so it's just like it matches their target audience's eye levels.
I could see
stuff
that.
like that.
I think any store, not just grocery, but even casinos and arcades, anything like that, like they're really built to, in a specific way,
Yeah.
to kind of trick you into buying more things.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Just like how, I don't know, like I used to think of marketing purely as like billboards and ads, but marketing can be even changing the layout of your store.
Yeah. Marketing is
to bring you
everywhere.
money. Yeah. It's crazy. Or recently I've been trying to learn video editing. And I was watching a video on like how to edit a meme, how to make a meme. And the guy was like, you know, it might seem like a small and light thing, but companies are hiring meme makers to their marketing teams. And so like you could actually make money from making memes.
That's smart.
And yeah, it's super smart.
But usually when those companies get a hold of it, that's when it's known as like a dead meme. Because like even the Bernie Sanders admittance, it's already seen as a dead meme. And that was literally
Yeah.
like what? That was, for us, that was like 5 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like Amazon started using it.
Exactly.
weren't they?
Yeah, it was a big thing. And then that's when it dies, is when these companies take over it.
Yeah.
Late night talk show hosts take it. Yeah. It's like, that's when the meme is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, and I don't know if you saw Bernie, he put out on a sweatshirt and sold it. Did you see that?
No. How much?
So-
They probably sold it for a ton, right?
I don't know, but I think it was like $45.
What?
But he put on a sweatshirt and he sold it, and it sold out like instantly.
Oh,
and
I thought you meant the sweatshirt he was wearing.
No,
like
no,
it was
no,
like
no.
a piece of history.
no, like the picture. And
That's funny.
And
Okay, yeah, that definitely wouldn't buy that for $1 million. So I get that more.
but it was funny because, or not funny, but it was cool because all the money he made, he like donated to Meals on Wheels in
That's
Vermont,
really cool.
which I thought was cool. I like Bernie for that. He like really, from what I can tell, practices what he preaches.
He's the one that got away.
He really believes in what in his vision for America.
My favorite thing about Bernie is he's always stuck with his opinions, even since the 80s. Like he's always been the same guy. If you look at anything he talks about back in the 80s or 90s,
Sorry, is it
No,
down the wrong too?
if you look at anything he talks about back in the 80s or the 90s,
Yeah.
like you can see like his opinions have not changed at
Yeah.
all for 2021.
And they were like, you know, in the 80s and 90s, they were like super progressive for America.
Yeah.
And now they're like still progressive, but like not to the extent that they were.
Especially the socialism aspect.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, I feel like we shame politicians too much for changing their opinions. Because, you know, I change my opinions freaking year to year, day to day sometimes,
Right.
you know, as I like research more. Like, I think it's really important to not be tied to not make your beliefs necessarily who you are.
For sure, like Romney is a big issue right now
Yeah.
in Utah. Like everybody's like, no, he's just doing it, like the Black Lives Matter stuff, just because it's what's in these days.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't think that people can change? I mean, he's
Yeah.
had a lot of policies switch
Yeah.
in the last 10 years, you know?
And I think that shaming of changing opinions is one of the reasons that we see this political divide.
Yeah.
Because there's these politicians that feel like they can't change anything that they ran on or change something that they believed 15 years ago, because then people will be like, oh, they're just changing for the money or whatever, which might be true for some people.
Right, or to get more votes. And I'm sure that's still a thing.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Like, that you try to go for the most popular thing so you get the most votes, even if that's not your opinion. But, I mean, I don't think we should changing opinions at all.
And well, also, even that, like, changing what you're running on, even if it's not what you believe, but to get more votes, like, is that not the idea of being a representative and representing your constituents?
For sure.
Like, is that not what we're supposed to have in our government?
Exactly.
And so, like, I just, these ways of shaming politicians, like, sometimes I feel like politicians definitely get a worse rap than they deserve.
Yeah, maybe people get scared, like they'll still vote the opposite, because you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true.
You can run as whatever you want.
That's
you
true.
can vote differently.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And it is like really sleazy. Like, there's a senator, Tom Cotton. I can't remember where he's the senator for, but he ran. One of his things was that he was an Army Ranger in like Desert Storm, and apparently it just came out that he was like never even in the military.
Interesting.
And
that's crazy that just came out, because I don't know if you've seen those YouTube videos of people just going to a mall and wearing like the military outfit. They get called out immediately because it looks a little wrong or things like that.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like just now it's coming out that he was never in the military.
Well, maybe like people knew before, but now it's just recently starting to like make news.
Right.
Because there can be a delay in media, or media companies report off of what makes money, and maybe it wasn't making money before because reporting on Trump made more money or whatever.
Right. It's definitely, I feel like it slowed down the news.
Oh yeah.
Since Trump
already
came into office already. Yeah.
Yeah. I can, like, I get a little frustrated with the fascination, or like the emphasis that Trump supporters have on the media, but I can also understand, because while I was not a big fan of Trump, like a lot of what was reported was not news. It was like just everything was editorials. It was like, I hate Trump because of this, and I think that he should resign because of this. Like just purely opinions,
For sure. And that was the thing back during like, Obama's presidency.
Yeah.
Bush's.
Oh, definitely.
But it's risen so much since Trump's been in office.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting because the frustration that people have with the free media, like things are reported the way they are because they get the most clicks, and that brings in the most money.
Right. But then it could damage the reputation if it's wrong. Like that's been big things with certain news sites. Well, they'll go through a couple months of just publishing anything that will catch people's eye. But then people will recognize that website and be like, oh, I'm not clicking on that. I know that's probably BS.
Oh, yeah. Like, I kind of do that with The Guardian. That's a very leftist news site. And most of the stuff I see there, I, like, take with a huge grain of salt.
Yeah.
Like, the same as, like, Fox News.
Yeah.
Honestly. Just because, they just word things in such an extreme way that I'm like, okay, this is clearly biased and possibly not even true.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like left-leaning news sites and right-leaning news sites, they could talk about the exact same situation in completely different ways.
Yeah. And, like, I think I've talked to you about this before, but I to be fair, like left-leaning news sites, I feel like I still can find some right-leaning ideals. Like specifically in the business sections or the economic sections, but on a right-leaning news site, I never see anything that's like left-leaning.
Yeah.
But there are some that I like genuinely trust. Like I really like New York Times. I feel like they're pretty good. I mean, obviously Associated Press, BBC. Those are some that I like tend to trust more.
I get a lot of my news from Reddit, and even that, like, I think Reddit on average is pretty left leaning.
Oh yeah, definitely. On Reddit, I follow the politics subreddit, which is basically the left leaning subreddit, and then I also follow the conservative subreddit. And it's really interesting to like see their different points of views on the same thing.
Right. And yeah, you should. People should definitely go out and, if you see an article, like just look up the article in the same situation, or just get your news from different sites. Don't get your news from everything that agrees with you.
Yeah. Like definitely get diverse opinions and And like I struggle with that sometimes, you know. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to have the time or the mental energy to like really try and learn what's going on accurately.
For sure.
But it's important, you know. Would you ever want to work in the government? Like as like a representative or something like that? Like that seems like a shitty job.
No, I would not. I'd work for like as like a mailman or a teacher, but yeah, I'd never want to be. I mean, it's kind of ironic that I'm saying this because I'm putting my voice out here right now.
Yeah.
But I would never want to be like the face of anything and have people dig into everything that I'm doing and
Yeah.
things like that. Be on the front headlights, and I'm not saying we're at that point.
Yeah.
But I mean, this as low of a chance as it is, this could potentially blow up.
Yeah. And well, like with politicians, they you know, they take it to another level. Like I feel like people hold celebrities accountable, but politicians are held to a different standard than even celebrities, I feel like, because they're in charge of people's lives, you know?
For sure. Although, like, you see, you know how, like, the majority of celebrities are pretty left-leaning?
Yeah.
You'll see people like Chris Pratt and other people, well, they'll talk about, like, religion or they'll talk about their right-leaning views.
It's true.
And they'll get so much backlash.
That's true. They'll get shit on.
Yeah. And it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's sad that, like, you know, I might not agree with their viewpoints, but it's like people should be able to have different viewpoints.
For sure. Especially the Christian thing. Like, I remember people like, you're Christian? What is this? Like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. Like, calm down.
I can't like have my own belief system, like spiritual belief system.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. Yeah, there's a lot of jobs that I just admire people for being willing to take. And there's a lot of jobs I've had where I'm like, I would never want to do that again.
So you'd never want to be like running for representative, you don't think?
I actually, that's one that I feel like I might enjoy a little bit. Well, maybe not, because I don't see. It's like you said, like I don't enjoy that aspect of people digging into every aspect, every part of my past.
For sure.
But I am passionate about like politics and particularly about politics becoming more like centrist. And I think people really appreciate when there are like centrist representatives or senators, like Tulsi Gabbard. People like, even from the right, people really like Tulsi Gabbard because she's just like in the middle and like very respectful of different viewpoints and calls the left out on stuff and
Yeah, there's
calls
like
the right out on stuff.
I think there's two people on the Supreme Court that like go either way. They're pretty moderate.
I think Justice Kennedy, is he still around?
I think so.
I think he's one of them, and I can't remember the other.
I've always liked that with the Supreme Court. I feel like, I mean, that's the only reason
Yeah.
we even get certain laws in place.
Yeah.
Because if it was like, it's what's the number for the Supreme Court? Is it
9?
9? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you had 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats or vice versa, you know, just everything would go in that way.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of people enjoy those centrists that,
Yeah.
you know, have their own opinions on
Definitely.
things. And I think even a lot of people that are left leaning or are right leaning, for the most part, they're not 100% left or
Yeah.
100% right.
Yeah.
You know, but
Usually-
they'll generally identify with
Yeah.
one or the other.
And usually it's because of like one issue.
Yeah.
Like for right leaning people, I've met so many people that basically believe in the left leaning platform, but they're just like, oh, I just can't support abortion.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. Gun control.
Yeah.
Abortion.
And for the left, like for me, like I really want like universal health care.
Yeah. And I know a lot of Republicans that are at least willing to, you know, try something like that out.
Yeah. Or like on the right, I hear a lot of like they still want to change the healthcare system. Like they're like, we should just like get rid of insurance companies and just have everything negotiated between the patient and like the hospital or everything.
Did you know that healthcare was actually considered a human right back in the 40s, but they haven't really like done anything about it?
Yeah, it was passed by, I mean, in the UN has recognized it as a human right. And I mean,
The U.S., like the government.
oh, the US said it was a human right?
Yeah, back in the 40s.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, so like they voted, I think it was just a big court case, and they voted like, yeah, like everybody should have access to healthcare, but they never put that into place.
Yeah, I hear the argument like that right now everyone does have access to it, but you just have to pay money for it,
Yeah.
and so everyone has access to it.
Right, that's not
But
the
it's
same.
like if
And
you
I
don't
think-
have, yeah,
I think even with what they voted on, like it's not the same as like that with like the middleman companies and things like that.
yeah, and I don't know, like it's pretty basic economics. Like I'm far from an economics expert, but it's pretty basic economics that. Do you know what elasticity is?
No.
So there's supply and demand, right? And there's the slope for each of them, and the slope of supply and demand determines the elasticity. And so the elasticity is essentially how much does like the supply or demand change with like a dollar change in the pricing.
Right.
And so with something like if you need insulin, right? Whether it costs $1 or $100, the demand isn't going to change a lot because people need it to
sure.
survive.
Yeah.
And so with that, like even if you abolish insurance companies, like people are still going to get taken advantage of because
Big pharma.
Yeah, because people need healthcare services regardless,
Yeah.
you know. And I've heard like some counter arguments to that I'm not like crazy familiar with. To me, they just kind of seemed like they didn't make sense, but I should research them more.
Yeah, I mean that's always a funny thing I've heard about. I mean, this is definitely going to be probably our most left-leaning podcast thus far.
Yeah.
But that's always an argument I'll hear when it comes to raising things like the minimum wage.
yeah.
They'll be like, "I hope you enjoy your $67 Big Mac now," or things like that. And you know, that's not how it is at all. I mean, if McDonald's could get away with selling Big Macs for $60 and they wouldn't lose like their customers,
Yeah.
they would do it.
Yeah.
And same thing if McDonald's could get away with paying their employees $2 an hour instead of, I think locally it's about 13 starting. Instead of 13, they would do that. Like it's all
Yeah.
about making money. Like
Yeah.
if they raise minimum wage, you know, the price of the Big Mac in Seattle and Portland, they're the same as
Yeah.
here. There's literally not even a dollar
Yeah.
difference.
And you know, like eventually they will increase, but that's just inflation in general. And it's been shown that wages and the cost of living, like they do somewhat influence each other, but they definitely don't correlate like on a 1-to-1 ratio.
Right.
And you see that with you know, stuff has been getting more expensive with inflation, but wages have stayed the same, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they don't correlate the same way.
Yeah, they haven't changed the minimum wage since I think 2011 was the last time the minimum wage was changed federally.
I thought that the 725 has been around since like the 90s or something.
The 90s?
Maybe not. Never mind. I take that back. I thought it was. I'm probably
Maybe
wrong.
somewhere in between the 90s and 2011. It's been a while though since it increased.
But in my economics course that we're in right now, my professor, his first lecture, he talked about all these myths that are perpetuated by people, like economic myths, and one of them was this wage increase in the minimum wage and the increase in the cost of living, and the like 1-to-1 ratio or whatever. And he showed this chart where since the 70s, worker productivity has increased by 70%.
Really?
But wages have essentially stayed the same. It's like plus or minus, or like maybe like 10% or something like that.
Do you know where they got that study from? Like with workers' productivity?
I could find it.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where it was. I didn't have my notebook at the time.
Right.
I hadn't bought a notebook yet, and
Yeah.
so I didn't write down. So the Economic Policy Institute has a study on it, where, yeah, productivity has risen about 70%, and hourly wage has risen 15%.
That's crazy. So where do they get it from though? Like how do they know that people are more productive than they were in the 70s? Like the amount of gold stars people have received at their jobs, or
it might be GDP, because that kind of measures, I mean, that does measure like the production of a country. So that
Right.
would be my guess, is that they take into account the GDP. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to read this more in depth.
so do you think China like their production quality has gone up since like the 70s.
Oh, for
Because their
sure.
economy is doing really
For sure.
well.
Yeah. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, their GDP has grown. I think that,
Because they still, like, it was pretty common for a lot of hours to be worked and things like that back in the 70s as well for China.
yeah. Yeah, and if you see how many people that have been brought out of poverty in China, it's actually crazy.
Really?
How fast they've brought their population out of poverty, because even like their GDP is lower than ours. Or wait, no, did it pass ours?
I think it
Freak.
did. I
Yeah,
think it passed ours.
I think it what?
I think recently it passed
Yeah.
ours, last 5 years.
But their GDP per capita is lower than ours.
Okay.
But still, their people are wealthier because
Wealthier in the sense of make more money, or
in the sense of their wage to cost of living ratio is higher than ours.
well, I know there's a lot of people that will like work and live in the same factory, and there'll be like whole markets set around that. Have you like looked into that at all?
No, I don't know, but I know that they're like the PPP, which is essentially like the purchasing power of a dollar, like how far a dollar can get you, is higher in China. And so for that reason, even though their wages are lower, on average, they actually like make more because their cost of living is lower.
So yeah, from what I'm seeing, is there are multiple accounts of people living in factories, and the conditions aren't like fantastic. From what I'm seeing on Google and specific searches, they have bunk beds that don't have any padding, and
Yeah.
really dirty bathrooms and things like that. And I think just one room on average has like 8 people in it.
Yeah, I mean, and right here on Business Insider, they talk about what's called an iPhone city. And even though it's not people living in the factory, it's sounds like there's a massive like dormitory complex that's like across the street, right outside of the factory.
Right.
And so they basically, their whole life is just back and forth between the factory and this dormitory place.
For sure, and the labor hours are pretty crazy. From what I've seen, there's been studies on like the amount of overtime the average like Chinese factory worker gets, and it's between 80 and 175. And 80 alone is about it's like 20 extra hours a week. So that's just on the low end.
Month.
A month.
Oh,
Sorry.
I
What
thought
did
you meant
say?
a week. I was like, how is that possible?
No, I mean it's possible, but it's not. I don't know how many hours in a week, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's more than 120.
Probably. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So with the Chinese factory, though, I mean, I understand that more than like living in a factory, just because like there's things like the gold rush or even oil now, where
Yeah.
there are whole towns that are built around this one thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And people will generally like to live there more, and so there'll be stores that open up, and slowly those towns get bigger. That's how a lot of our big towns are now. Like they were just big spots for gold and things like that.
Yeah, it's I mean, you would get a business that's lucrative enough, and they can gain hold of the labor market, and it's actually like a monopoly on labor.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's even countries where they super specialize in one thing.
Right. Saudi Arabia, like the huge reason they're rich is oil.
Yeah, and there's a lot of monopoly on those jobs, or those jobs have a lot of monopoly on the labor market, is what I meant to say.
I wonder what the conditions would be in Saudi Arabia and those kinds of countries, like Middle Eastern types of things.
Well, I know a lot of the issue that human rights organizations have with those types of countries is the wealth all goes to the top, and so most people live in poverty.
Right. Because the cities are really big. It's almost like Singapore, where it seems like you're either extremely rich and you're at the top, or you're pretty down below. Or India, like there's massive, huge companies and mansions that are right next to slums in the streets. So
I mean, there's even places in America like that. There's like these golf course gated communities, and they're right next to some pretty shady parts of town.
For sure.
Which is a sad reality. And you see around the world, like the middle class is shrinking, just because the wealth gap is getting larger and larger, which is unfortunate, and I hope that changes, but doesn't seem like there's much going on to change that right now.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of those jobs, like I would never ever want to have. Like the factory jobs and stuff.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I can't imagine working somewhere where I just don't like. I'm a big thinker. Like I like thinking more than doing.
Yeah.
For sure. And I like to, understand what's going on and get more into depth with my job than assembling things.
Yeah. Well, like from what I understand, and you even see this to some extent in the U.S., but all the education system in China is built to keep people from having free thought, because they don't want them to question their government, question what the government's doing, because they're an authoritarian governing system.
Right.
And so that transfers to them just being like very like obedient workers.
Yeah. Well, the education system in the United States actually hasn't changed since the 70s.
I know.
And that was
It's crazy.
when factory working in the United States was huge.
Yeah. And it was built around the same thing, just giving like the basic knowledge that's needed to function in society and be good workers, but not to, there's not many classes on how to sift through different research papers and know what's credible.
For sure.
And it's not really a system that's built to get people thinking.
They have some of those extracurricular activities, like ours and I both took debate, and that was definitely a big portion
Definitely.
of it. And, there's those automotive kind of classes or wood shop. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, from my education is get your assignments done on time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how it was in the factory. Like get this job done on time.
Yeah. And I know that they've found that people that get straight A's in high school tend to not actually do as well as people who get like C's and B's even, just because they learn how to just follow directions and do what their teacher wants or what the school wants, but not necessarily how to apply their skills or what they've learned outside of school.
Yeah.
They just aren't as well rounded.
I've read a lot of studies on like valedictorians in high school.
Yeah.
And they generally just are like super burnt out after high school. And they're
believe
not
it, dude.
usually like the ones that are like the high achievers.
I believe it. Yeah, because it's just so much energy and time to just do everything to perfection.
Right. And, high school is, not a lot like life.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. Life isn't going to tell you exactly what to do to succeed.
Yeah, that's actually something I had to overcome. And maybe other people can relate to this, but it seems like, since I was a kid to 18, it seemed like life was pushing me forward, right? I would move on from first grade to second grade.
Yeah.
And second grade to third grade, all the way up to high school. And it seemed like after I graduated high school, there's nothing moving me forward, and the only person that can move me forward is myself. And I feel like everybody kind of has to come to those terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll happen to you after you graduate college, right? Your parents push you into that, and then you don't know what to do from there.
Yeah. Yeah, even now, like, I've had some of that with, do I want to continue doing college? Or I worked as a car salesman for, like, a month or two. I think it might have been 2 months.
Yeah, I remember you saying something like that.
And I hate that job. I would never want to do it for a living. But when I first started it, I was like, wow, you can make a lot of money doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's people that there's like ex-convicts, which I thought was cool because I think ex-convicts are stigmatized too much. And so I thought it was cool that they would hire people with records.
Right. You got to think about it, though. I mean, if you're in the drug industry and I'm not saying every ex-convict that worked at your dealership was in those kinds of industries, but I think to be, one of those high up criminals, you have to be really good with people.
That's
and
true.
You have to be really smart.
Yeah, that's true. And they would be there and they'd make like anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
Selling cars.
Even things like Ponzi schemes, you have to be a pretty intelligent person to be able to pull things like that off, investment, anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I didn't know the car places hired convicts and things like that.
Yeah, they would hire people from all walks of life, and I thought that was really cool. But when I was working there, I was like, oh, maybe I should just maybe I don't need school. And I could just work something like this, which is totally acceptable. But I think with myself, I found that I would not be fulfilled if I look back in 50 years and what I was doing was selling cars.
For sure.
Which, again, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but me and my personal beliefs and preferences, I don't think I would be satisfied.
Right.
And that's a lot of what has been me and growing up is figuring out what kind of impact I want to leave on the world and what would leave me feeling like I have had a positive influence on the people of my country and community and world.
So I talked about my dream job back in episode 2. And I don't think we really went on to yours. So like, what would like in your opinion right now with your stage of life, like what would be your perfect idea or perfect job?
Like after I'm through with school and everything?
Yeah. Like, let's say like, where would you want to go? Like to help out your community and things like that. Cause that's what you were saying that you wanted to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about like, politicians, and you know, I've toyed with the idea of like maybe trying to be like a local politician and stuff like that, but it goes back to like the level of scrutiny that, you know, I think is to a certain extent unfair to hold any person to. And so I lean a lot more towards like international work, like international politics. When I was at BYU, there was this lady that came to speak. Her name is Aza Karam. And if I remember right, she's Egyptian. And she worked for the UN, and her job was to, whenever there were natural disasters or humanitarian crises, she would consolidate resources from different charities and look at what charities like were good at and everything, and determine what their role was in helping in this humanitarian crisis.
Right.
And I think a job like that would be really cool, because I really like working with like logistics and stuff like that.
You ever thought about doing like running for mayor of a city? Because I don't think you really need a ton of credentials. Like I don't even know if you need to have a bachelor's.
I've kind of thought about it. From what I've seen, a lot of like local politicians, even at the state level, they do it for like they have a different profession that they do outside of being mayor or being like a state representative or stuff like that.
That's true, because I don't think it takes a lot of, I don't think it pays well, and I don't think it takes a lot of time either. Like I don't think it's a 40-hour-a-week kind of job.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Maybe like certain times of year it is, or if there's like a crisis, you know. But
definitely those monthly meetings, you know, they can take all day.
Yeah,
like that.
But yeah, I've definitely thought about it. I mean, that would be way down the road. I mean, at least like 20 years. So, but I think definitely I would enjoy doing international work more. Like when the Syrian refugee crisis was a big thing, I was like really passionate about that type of stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know. We'll see where life takes me, but I study international relations. And so that's, and I you know, I speak Chinese and I'd like to use that somehow. But we'll see.
So is that what your graduate's going to be? Like your bachelor's?
Yeah. So when I was at my previous university, it was, international relations, and when I transferred to the University of Utah, they don't have international relations. They have international studies. And it wasn't quite what I was looking for coursework wise. And so now I'm technically in a double major between political science and economics. But that's what international relations is. And so I just still say I'm doing international relations.
Okay.
That was a long explanation, but...
So you were saying you worked at a car dealership for 2 months or so. Do you think that's like the weirdest job you've taken for money? Or is there like maybe a side job? Somebody offered you money for something?
Yeah, I did like window washing for a little bit. I feel like that's kind of unique one.
Like the spray bottle in the newspaper?
Not newspaper, no. I had like the squeegees, you know?
Right. I can't wash windows. I mean, I've been asked to, like at the pizza place I work at. And I'm like, I don't know why it seems complicated to me.
It is like
there's a certain method you gotta.
Yeah. There's definitely a method, and it was kind of fun. I did that for a summer. Nothing too exciting.
I feel like those guys probably gotta make some decent chunk of money, especially those guys that go on like those really tall buildings.
Yeah, I feel like like you're saying, the tall building one. I feel like even that's a little bit dangerous. Yeah, you know, probably. Like if there's have you ever seen it where they're washing windows in like a windstorm? Those high rise window washers.
Why would you wash it then?
It's just like they're in the middle of the job and like a windstorm comes through.
Oh, okay.
It's not like they're like, oh, it's windy today. Let's go wash today.
Because I mean, yeah, with my maintenance job, it's not like I'd have to work on roofs sometimes, and it's not like I'd go out there when it's snowing or raining.
Yeah,
Bad idea.
Yeah, but it's crazy, dude. They're like flying all over the place and smashing into the windows, and
That's terrible.
yeah, it'd be terrifying.
That's a big thing. Do you know underwater welding, like welding bridges and
Yeah,
stuff? That's
yeah.
supposed to be super lucrative, and I have a lot of friends that like looked into it because they're on welding right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is like it's a really high death toll.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to die underwater.
Yeah, there's well, it's not even just like the risk of drowning, but like I guess these pipelines, if you it's essentially like a vacuum inside because of the pressure difference inside of it versus the pressure outside. And so if you like mess up and you like make a hole in it, it will like suck you through a hole the size of like a silver dollar.
Really?
Yeah, like
Sounds awful.
there are
That's like some Final Destination stuff.
yeah, dude. There's videos of and anyone listening, I encourage you to go look at this. It's not of a human dying, but there's like a crab walking past like one of the pipes when like a hole opens up or something, and the crab is just like walking by, and it's just a little tiny hole. You can barely even see it, and it sucks the whole crab through.
That's
It's
crazy.
like a full adult crab.
Ugh.
It just like crushes like its shell and everything.
Doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah, and so it'll just like obliterate you if you mess up.
That's another thing with factory work. I mean, people, they'll get used to these machines, these huge machines all day,
Yeah.
for 20 plus years, and they'll forget that they're actually super dangerous.
Yeah,
They'll get all their
dude.
fingers crushed, or they'll get sucked into a machine. That's pretty common in
Yeah.
those areas.
Or have you ever heard of the book Educated?
No.
So this is another book that I didn't read, but my fiance did, and she told me about it. But essentially, this Educated book is about this girl that grew up in a very, I don't want to say fundamentalist LDS family because that's FLDS. It's very traditional, and they're very like suspicious of the government with everything, and didn't let their kids go to school because they thought school was just a way to make kids communist and stuff like that.
So QAnon type of people?
Yeah, those type of people.
Real quick, side note, I have a story about that. So I have a friend who is a teacher in middle school, and she has a student who like always wears a Trump hat, and he's been pretty big into that. And I guess during the inauguration, he had his Chromebook out and pretended like he was doing homework, but he was watching the inauguration on his phone.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Hey, can you put your phone away?" And he's like, "No, like I know something's gonna happen. Like, I know." Like he was really expecting all that stuff we talked about in the previous episode of the beheadings and the
Yeah.
shutting down of everything. So
That's so funny.
people were really expecting this.
It's funny in a scary way.
Yeah.
So yeah, this Educated book. They live out in the middle of nowhere, and I can't remember exactly what they were doing, but they were like siphoning gas out of old cars, or I don't know, something like that. And it was the dad and one of the sons, and they were getting this gas, and the son like the dad got a bunch spilled on him, and then they went in for lunch, and he forgot that the gas had been on him and had like kind of dried up, and they like lit a match for something, and he caught on fire and he got super burned. And he didn't believe in doctors. He thought that those were also like government spies or something. So they didn't go to the hospital or anything.
Yeah.
And he just like stayed home. But it was just one of those things where he's done it so many times that he forgets how dangerous, working with gasoline can be.
For sure.
And he lights himself on fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've heard stories of some of these families that will like they have a daughter that's diabetic, and they don't give her insulin. They just pray for her like every day. It's like, come on, like what are you doing?
Yeah. That's just child abuse.
Yeah, it is. It's got to be. And I feel like if you believe God and like He works in miracles and things like that, wouldn't you still want to like have like a plan B? Like, oh, this doesn't seem like it's working. Let's give her insulin now.
Well, also, how is like modern medicine not like, how could you not think that that's a miracle?
For sure.
Like, you inject a little bit of liquid and it saves your life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Seriously, yeah, that's my other argument on that. But yeah, even the plan B, like
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Have you had any unique jobs or jobs that you've hated?
So when I worked in maintenance, it was like I would do a bunch of different jobs in a day. So
yeah.
I'd be sent We probably had like 400 different properties that we did, and it wasn't just houses; it was like big apartment complexes and things. I think it was like over $1 billion in assets.
Holy cow!
Yeah, but so there's been times where I would have to. Usually, it was pretty standard stuff, like go into this house, repair it, or like these people just moved out, make sure everything's still working, things like that. But there were times where like an HOA would get mad at someone, and I would have to go down there and like mow their lawn against their will.
Wait. Oh, like the people didn't keep up with HOA standards?
Yeah, so like I get it's seriously, some of these HOAs are crazy. Like it's like your bush isn't trimmed to this inch right here, and we're sending somebody down here, and we're gonna charge you $200 for them to trim that tiny piece of bush. It's crazy. Like they would send me out. This wasn't all.
It's like a neighborhood mafia.
For sure. Yeah, this wasn't all the time, but it would probably be like at least once a month that I would have to go down and like mow people's lawns against their will or pull their weeds against their will. Where it's just like they send somebody down and I awkwardly go onto their property and I just start pulling out weeds or start mowing a lawn. And, that's gotta be the most awkward thing in the world. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm mowing your lawn and I'm also charging you $200 for it. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can maybe kill me. Like that was the biggest thing. Like it was like, you don't know these people that you're going to their house and you're just like
on their property.
Right. Isn't that freaking creepy, man?
Yeah. Wait, so why? I don't understand why HOAs are a thing. Why are they a thing?
Just to keep up with, I guess it keeps the value up with properties if everything looks really nice. And there's things like with standards like smoking or pets.
Oh.
It's to keep everything in balance. Almost like a small government, I would say, for communities. So there wouldn't be like an HOA for like an individual house. I mean, I think there are for some places like Daybreak. That's a local neighborhood in our city. Yeah. But I think that's a thing. I think it's mostly a thing for apartment complexes and condos, just to make sure everything looks nice, keeps the property value up.
See, I hear about them a lot in neighborhoods though, like outside of apartment complexes and stuff, like Daybreak, like you were mentioning, or like I lived kind of close to Daybreak. It wasn't in Daybreak, but there were HOAs in that area, and it's like you have no choice but to join if you want to move in there.
Yeah, but like our property right now, we don't have an HOA.
But does your landlord have one? No, he doesn't?
No.
Okay. That's cool.
And like same thing with my parents' house. Like they don't live in an HOA. And for the most part, neighbors like to keep their lawns nice. And I think HOAs do have like, they have good in them. Like there's this one house that's actually it's up near where the canyon is by our city. And it's this house. They ripped out all the grass from their house and they like put out signs saying like lawns are like white privilege. And they have like an outdoor tattoo parlor just like sitting there, and they have like all these crazy signs about like being against abortion, like all these like politics that are just way out there. And it's seriously like, it's almost, I don't know, it's like an attraction. Like I'll drive past that house sometimes, but
sounds like a modern art piece or something.
I don't know. Like, dude, these people are crazy though. They have Trump flags. They have this one thing. It's seriously like they're like little exhibits, but there's one sign where it says proof that God exists beyond this door, and there's an actual door there, and it's framed, and you can literally open it and see what's in there. And I was so scared. I drove past it, and I really wanted to look in there. I was so scared. I was like, "What is there? Like a shotgun tied to the other side? Like open this? Like, boom! Now you're dead. Now you know. Like,
yeah.
Seriously, like that was pretty scary. I mean, there's been a lot of weird stuff about that house, and I'd rather not live next to people like that.
Yeah,
like,
that's
ruining their entire property.
That's fair. And well, so even with that sounds like lawns are white privilege, and then like a Trump flag. Those like seem like those don't typically go hand in hand.
It's crazy,
like,
people, man.
Can you tell where they are on the political spectrum?
I would imagine they're for Trump. Like if they have a Trump flag, like yeah, but their windows are blacked out. Like I think it's got cleaned up a bit because I think they've been sued. Like yeah, I mean, I wish I got to see what was beyond that door. It'd be a fun story to tell on the podcast. I mean, this is kind of a fun story to tell now. But yeah, I mean, I just imagine like what could it have been?
Is it still there?
No, it's not. They took it down.
I was like, we should go and talk about it next podcast.
Seriously, they have. We should totally go there, and because they have new stuff like every month. Like they'll take all their stuff down and they'll put up like new stuff.
Yeah, we should go and we can put the pictures on our Instagram or something.
Yeah, they have another thing where it's white people only yoga outside of their house. On the dirt, like you put down a yoga mat, white people only, and they literally say in the sign like black people and other ethnicities can watch, but they can't participate in the yoga.
I don't understand. Like if they're about being against like white privilege.
Well, maybe they're trying to like it's a parody of it.
Oh, like satire,
or
something like that.
Yeah, but like it's like super serious, strong opinions, and it's just crazy what they've done to this house.
I wonder if they think like, yeah, we're gonna change people's opinions with this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, nobody's gonna think we're nut jobs when we tear out our lawn and we have, yeah, like they have weird stuff. They have like they just have a big pit in the front lawn. And there's shovels that they left behind and things like that. Oh yeah, that's a good story. We should totally go out there and take pictures.
It literally sounds like they are trying to run a art museum. Like that's literally what it sounds like.
I don't know.
Like
I don't know what it
interpretive
is. I would
art
never want to
somehow.
like knock on their door and ask though.
We should do it.
No.
That would be a
Ask me
great
to be
story,
on the podcast,
yeah.
dude. We're gonna get shot. I was afraid I was gonna get shot by that door.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really run across stuff like that.
You know, there's crack houses, there's meth houses.
Yeah.
I'd probably rather those, I feel like.
Yeah, honestly.
You know, at least you keep it contained. You try to hide it from the police. They don't have to hide any of this from the police.
Yeah, because
it's just an eyesore. Like imagine walking your dog and you see that all the time. I mean, I do go there probably once a month just as like I wonder what they're up to
wait,
today.
where is it at? It's in Salt Lake?
Yeah, it's near the mouth of the canyon of Cottonwood Heights.
Okay, yeah, we need to go. I'd be way down to go.
Yeah.
Speaking of houses that go all out, it reminded me, I know it's not Halloween time, but it reminded me of
Are we gonna get into our spooky, scary nighttime?
I had a friend all growing up from elementary school to high school, and his family would go all out for Halloween. Their house, I don't know how much money they'd spend on decorations. It had to be like $1,000+
Really?
and they would get all of us friends and we'd go over and we'd like dress up as like scarecrows or zombies and we'd scare kids. And
So you're one of those houses.
yeah, it was the best part of the year. And looking back, I feel terrible. But
You know, like if your house is decorated that scary, little kids won't go near there anyways. You know, so
like there was a friend where he would like drag a shovel on the ground and it would be like sparking.
oh, that's creepy.
And he
dude.
would like
I would be scared.
be
of that.
chasing kids.
Dude, I would be scared.
And
of
we
that.
would like have friends from middle school and stuff that would come to the house and we'd recognize them and like scare them. And like there'd be kids that would start crying. And those I would feel bad about in the moment. But
I know there's people like with chainsaws and they'll take the chain off and they'll like scare the crap out of little kids like that.
oh my gosh, I would be scared about that.
Yeah.
Like now.
Right? How is it legal? I feel like there's got to be a point, you know, where
Yeah.
like I don't think the huge clown movement, not
Oh
movement,
my
but like I think it
gosh,
happened like
yeah.
2016
Yeah.
where clowns would have like actual knives and they'll lunge
Yeah.
at you. And it's like a lot of those guys got shot and it's like, yeah, you deserve that. I mean,
Yeah.
you were literally a threat.
I would run someone down with my car if they were.
Oh, dude, so would I.
Like I would not F around with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but
You did a hit and run.
yes,
With a clown.
actually. No, I did not. I'm not admitting to anything. No,
Allegedly.
that actually
He was just
didn't happen.
accused of it.
Stop. But no, there was this girl that I dated for a couple months in high school, and there's one night where we went on a date and she was upset about something, I could tell, and we parked our car in some like back alley type place, not back alley, like in a neighborhood, and we were talking. It was just talking. I tell this story and people always think like, oh, you guys were making out, or no, we were talking, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong, and I was like leaning on my steering wheel and looking at her. I was like, what's wrong? Dibba-dibba-doo. And I sit up and I look in my rearview mirror and there's someone behind us.
Ooh, dude, that is
And-
so creepy.
And I forgot to mention before though, there was a Jeep that had come down and it turned around and left. And I was like, okay, he just took a wrong turn. And then I sat up and I saw in the rearview mirror and there was a person standing there. And then on the other side of the road, there was the Jeep with its lights off, and it was just like slowly moving towards us.
That is
And-
disgusting.
And we were at a dead end, and it was a really wide street. And
Couldn't
I was
pull
like,
around.
oh no. And she's like, what? And it's like, there's a guy behind us. And she's like, oh, it's nothing. I see something in his hand, and I thought it was a knife.
Oh my God.
And I was like, we're gonna get murdered here. And so I put the car into first, and I start driving as fast as I can. And then I pull an e-brake turn. I felt pretty cool about that, not gonna
That's
lie.
pretty sick.
Looking back, I felt really cool.
Yeah.
And the guy started running towards us, and the Jeep like pulled off to the side to pick the guy up. And as it was picking the guy up, we like sped off. And the girl I was with was like laughing and didn't think it was a big deal. I was like, we literally could have been killed.
Dude, yeah, what the hell was that?
And then I told my friend, another friend, about it. And he came back and he's like, yeah, so my girlfriend was out with her friends and they were scaring people that they thought were making out. And there was this car with American flag on it. And I used to have a car that I had American flag on that like sped off and they thought it was so funny. And I'm like, you could, and so it turned out it was them that was scaring us.
Seriously,
and they could have been killed. Like,
if I was in that, you could have had a gun. If I was in that position, like if I really felt like, you know, there was something serious going on, I have no problem running somebody over with my car.
Yeah.
Like if somebody is like walking toward me with a gun, running them over with the car.
Yeah.
Like that, easy peasy. I don't have any issues with that at all.
Like I don't know people's thought process. They're like, oh, let's make people think their lives are in danger, and that's funny.
That's fun. I have such a similar story, actually. I feel like I might have told you about this in high school. In high school, I went on a double date with some friends, and we went to the temple to see some lights, and we took the tracks down there. And when we took the tracks back, I think we stopped just closer to our house.
Really fast, for people that aren't from Utah, in downtown Salt Lake, there's a big religious building. We call it the temple. Everyone knows what we're talking about. But every holiday season, they put a ton of Christmas lights up, and people come from all over to see those lights. But
are they still decorating that with the reconstruction?
I have no idea.
I didn't see it this year. So
this year COVID is going on too. Maybe they didn't want to encourage a big gathering.
But I didn't even try to see if there was lights. Like I didn't go downtown.
Yeah, I imagine once they're renovating right now. I imagine once that's done, they'll.
It's like a 5-year renovation though, isn't it?
I have no idea. I don't keep up with that.
All right. So we come back and we get in the car and we're just like talking and hanging out. And there's this car that pulls right behind us, slows down, and they throw a firework out of their window right behind where we're parked. And I was like, holy shit, like what the hell's going on? Like, well, maybe not exactly that, but I was like, what the hell are these kids doing? Like they're just like messing around and stuff. And so it was literally just us, because it was probably like 1:30 in the morning. It was literally just us and this other car. And so we're boxed in on this in this parking garage. And so we're trying to like pull out, and then they throw another firework down. And like, I don't know what's gonna happen to my car if I run over a firework, right? I don't want my car to explode or light on fire. I don't think it would, but I didn't want to take the risk. So we just start playing like cat and mouse basically, and they're like throwing fireworks near our car, and it's like, Jesus Christ. So we end up like I'm on the phone with the police. I'm driving.
Oh, it's going on this long.
Yeah, it's going on this long. So I'm on the phone with the police. I'm driving. I'm like, hey, I need somebody to come down here. They're like, yep, we're sending somebody out right now. And so eventually they threw like a smaller firework, like one of those blossoms that like just kind of they're like lower. And so I just drive right over that. I drive through. I get out and I start speeding like hell. Like I'm going like 90 miles an hour just on like a regular 45-mile-an-hour road, and they are right behind us.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, could you imagine? Like, I know you kind of went through a similar situation.
No,
so
yeah.
I'm literally on the phone with the police. I'm speeding 90
Wait, how many
miles
people
an
are
hour.
in the car with you?
It was me, my date, and then 2 other people in the backseat.
Was everyone freaking out?
Oh yeah, everybody was totally freaking out. And so yeah, I'm on the phone with the police. I'm going 90 miles an hour, and so I think I lose them, and so we just go into a neighborhood, and I just go into a random driveway, and I turn off my lights, and I see that car pass us. But we're all ducking down, and we're like waiting, and they're like, the officers are coming. Like I'm on the phone with the dispatch, like as it's going on.
Dude!
And they're like, the officers are coming right now, and so the cop came, and we're like, hey, like we think we lost them. Like I think they passed us, and they didn't realize it. And yeah, nothing ever came of it. But oh my god, like it's so funny. We had similar stories like that. And I'm sure it was probably just stupid teenagers.
Yeah.
But like, fuck you if you're doing that to people.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, like, even going at that speed, being that panicked, it's like you're probably way more likely to crash your car into a tree and die, or I don't know.
For sure. But the thing is I was hoping to get pulled over, you know, because like I could at least talk my way out of the situation where I was like, no, pull that guy over. He's speeding right now. Go get him. You know.
Yeah.
So, oh man, like that's have I told you that story before?
No, I've never heard that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a fun story. I don't think I've thought about that since high school. So
I had
probably blocked most of it out.
Yeah,
till now.
That would be terrifying. I had a brother-in-law, and him and his friends, they would go on the freeway and shoot Roman candles at cars, or not on the freeway, on Bangor, which is a state highway. It's a highway,
here.
Yeah. And at the time when I was like 8 and I heard about this, I was like, oh, that's funny. But now I'm like, that's like really shitty to do.
Yeah, and we're definitely comparing that to us with water guns and snowballs. That's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Roman candles, huh?
Yeah.
That's scary.
That would scare me.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to pranks, I guess. We're going to talk about pranks a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, I guess so. 2 out of the 4.
But
I think we have it.
yeah.
Then we have time to check out that house.
So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I think that's about it for us. If you would like to reach out about anything, Mike, where could they find us?
They can find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Those are the easiest ways to reach out to us.
Yeah, so just send us a message on YouTube. There is our email linked in our About section. And also, we would love to get support in any way if you like this podcast.
If you would like to go to the library and listen to our podcast on every single computer you find there, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, just open up a bunch of accounts, log in on all computers. You can also find us at anchor.fm/Mike at the Helm, and you can subscribe there for a monthly whatever you want. It could be $1.
Could be 10.
Could be 20.
Yeah. Could be 1,000.
However much you want to do. If you see us on the street, you could give us a quarter.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. We'll mention you in the podcast if you do that.
Yeah.
If you recognize
give you a
me
shout
on the
out.
street. Yeah, give me a shout out.
But yeah, thank you so much. And I think that's all for me. Anything you need to say, Mike?
Don't fuck with people to pretend you're going to kill them.
Yeah, don't use fireworks while someone's driving at 90 miles per hour.
Yeah.
But we love you guys. Bye.